I'm introducing Jen McCreight, who blogs. It's really all you need to know. Blogs about atheism, feminism, science, sex, and so much more at freethoughtblogs.com/blaghag. She co-founded the Society of Non-Theists at Purdue University and was president for 3 years. Served many years on the National Secular Student Alliance Board of Directors, which was, thank you for serving, same time as myself. Jen was a contributor to Atheist Guide to Christmas and listed as one of More Magazine's top new feminists. And her day job is geeking about human genetics and evolution as a PhD candidate at the University of Washington. She's also on the Speakers Bureau for the SSA, and her presentation today will be on social media. Help me in welcoming Jen McCreight.
Thanks, Evan. Well, I will say off the bat, I feel weird giving a talk on social media to a room full of people who are now mostly younger than me. Especially since last week, I was like, what the hell is Vine? And there's always just new things that I can't keep up to date with. And as you can see, there are lots of different social media sites you can use, so many that I couldn't even fit them all on my title slide. But I'm using this to illustrate one of my main points, and that's going to be keep it updated. So I like this comic here where someone's talking about their campaign idea and they're gonna go to Facebook and YouTube and apps and Pinterest, but they have no idea what to actually post there. One of the worst things you can do while using social media for your group is having it be dead, having it go months or even years without any new posts. Because imagine from the point of view of a student who's maybe coming to your campus for the first time as a new student, or they've been there, they just haven't heard about you yet. If they find your Facebook group, your Twitter feed, your website, and it hasn't been updated in 2 years, they're gonna assume that you don't exist anymore, you're not doing anything, or you're just not very fun. So if there's anything you get from this talk, it's keep the stuff you do choose updated. That's the most important thing you can do. Now, the next big piece of advice I would give is keep it simple. Like I showed with those previous slides, there's all sorts of social media stuff you can join, but you really want to focus on a couple key things so it's easier to keep it updated. You don't want to have to send one of your officers to update 200 different sites all the time. And you really don't need that many different sites, especially for a student group. So I want to start with just some of the more common sites. And forgive me, this might seem a little basic, but I want to try to go into what makes the different type of sites useful, just in case maybe you're starting a group or you're trying to think about what sort of social media sites you should be using. So I want to start with, I don't even know if this counts as social media, but I needed to mention it, is just a boring old email list. And I think this is super important, and it's something really every group should have no matter what, because it allows more people to keep updated. It doesn't require having a Facebook account, even though most people nowadays have it. That way, closeted students can join it because their email isn't just displayed to the world and they're not just openly on a Facebook page. It also allows faculty, staff, or any off-campus groups and individuals to keep updated about your group regularly, even if maybe older individuals might not use Facebook as much, stuff like that. You just want to get as many people updated as possible. And one of the great things about this is it's really easy to ask for an email and sign them up yourself. The thing with Facebook groups and Twitter is that person has to go and actually make the effort of following you, and not many people are actually going to do that or remember to do it. So when you can just ask for a quick email at a meeting or a tabling event, you can do all the hard work for them. Now, if you want to set up a listserv, this is offered to student groups by many universities. You can look into your student activities office or tech groups. They'll be happy to set you up. And if you don't have one, Google Groups offers the same option for free. Now, I'm sure you've never heard of this thing called Facebook. Obviously, it's very popular and easy to use, which is why I really recommend using it for your group. There's some debate whether a page or a group is better for a student group, and there are some pros and cons that you have to weigh. So in case you're not aware of what the differences are, pages anyone can join, so you can't make it private, which can be good, and it's easier to moderate outgoing messages because really only the people running the group and admins can send stuff out, not just anyone, which that can be an issue that I'll get to later. And there's no limit to the number of people who can actually be in the group and get your updates. Or on the other hand, groups, instead of a page, they can be made private. So you might want that for your group if maybe you're at a religious university or you want closeted students to feel like they can join it without being displayed to the world. But the downside is there is a limit to the number of people you can have in that group. And once you hit about 200 people, it actually only starts sending your updates to a third of the members until you start basically advertise your updates. So if you think your group is, maybe right now your group's really tiny, but down the road you might want to keep all your alumni in that group and people don't want to unsubscribe. And if you get pretty big, basically your updates aren't getting to people anymore. So I think there's some benefit to a page and a group, and that's just something you have to decide for your own situation. Obviously Facebook is great for event pages. I wouldn't use this for your weekly meetings, but if you ever have a special event where a speaker's coming to town or you're doing some crazy Stone Heathen thing, that's a great time to have an event page made for that event. And don't make it the day before, make it weeks ahead of time. two or 3 weeks is great. Even months is okay. It's really important to get this out there ahead of time. And the great thing with these event pages is you can encourage your members to invite their friends who maybe aren't already involved in the group. You can network with other groups on campus who might be allied with you in some way, so maybe other liberal organizations or feminist groups or whatever, and you can kind of promote their events as long as they'll promote yours and get a little networking in that way. I also had forgotten about this until 10 minutes ago, so thanks, Gordon, but there's the Secular Student Alliance Affiliate Leader Space on Facebook, which is a great tool. There are over 600 student officers and just members of the Secular Student Alliance in this group. You can just search for this exact name, you'll find it. So if you ever have a question about running an event, or maybe some controversies happened on campus, or you just really want to flesh out event ideas, you can just go and post it, and there are going to be tons of other secular student leaders there ready to brainstorm with you and help you. So it's a great, great tool to use. Another great thing about Facebook is you can actually promote discussion amongst your members. You don't want to just be spamming them with ads and events. You actually want your people talking to each other and making friendships even. But you can use it for more event-related reasons, like promoting articles about your group if, for example, you got in the newspaper, a blog covered an event you did, or if you even just want to write up an article and share it and really encourage your members to get that out there, because all advertisement that you can put out there is great. Now there's also a website, which can be very important. So it establishes a web presence. So if a new student is trying to see if that university has a atheist group or a current student does, they can actually find you when they're Googling it. Many schools offer free hosting for websites. And if yours doesn't, the SSA actually has a web forward service. So they'll either set up a simple static web page for you that basically has your group name, contact, you can have a link to your Facebook group, and basically just contact information, so there's at least a bare bones page there that people can actually see if they're trying to find you. And you can also do redirects. So if you don't want to make a web page, but you have a really active Facebook group, but it's some horrible jumble of numbers and symbols and you don't want to put that on a flyer, you can actually get a nice simple little domain name that the SSA will give you. It's like secular student / whatever your group name is, and it makes it way better for when you're trying to advertise your group. So this is a link to that if you want to look into that service a little more. And if you don't want to do that, or if you want a little fancier web page, I would actually recommend most of the blogging structure for that. So Tumblr, Blogger, WordPress, they're kind of going in increasing difficulty, I think, from left to right. WordPress is a little more intense. Tumblr's really easy, Blogger's somewhere in the middle. Even though these are meant for blogging, I find them really useful for making simple websites because you can usually make static pages, then you can make posts that are just updates about new events, you can add links to calendars, and all sorts of good stuff on there. One thing I would just want to make this point really clear is that if you are making a website, worry about the actual content first, not how pretty it is or what your domain name is first. This was actually a problem I had with my group at Purdue, is that we were so excited about making a really beautiful website and having like our own domain name that we wasted months trying to figure out all that, and then we just never updated the website. So you really want to make sure you're going to use it, that your contact info is really obvious, that I can look at the page and instantly know where your regular meetings are. There should be a little button to sign up for the mailing list. All that sort of info should just be obvious. on top of blogs, I would actually say focus on other tools first, and that's coming from a blogger. Believe it or not, blogging actually takes a lot of time and energy. It's very hard to do. And if you're a new group getting started, blogging is basically doomed to failure. You have to be really disciplined and, like I said, update regularly. And but you know, if you really want to do it, I'm not going to squash your hopes and dreams. You should do it. There are some larger student groups that have blogs that are regularly updated, that are very interesting articles that get linked within the atheist blogosphere. So it's definitely possible. But if you're a smaller group, I would say try to focus on the other things first. But a blog can be good even if it's just general and more group specific. So you can, like I said before, write posts summarizing your events, and that makes it easier to advertise what you've done to members and people in your school, but also you can go send those posts to other bloggers and they might amplify your message if you've done something really cool. So if you do the writing for them, bloggers are more likely to advertise you because they can just quote you, and it's very nice. It's great for advertising upcoming events, like I said, and the one good perk about it is you can encourage discussion amongst members in comments, but that can also be a big roadblock, because as I will get to later, you also want to have some moderation there. So it's a huge time commitment having a blog. I would put it lower on the priority list unless you're just doing updates about events and stuff, unless I have this opinion or I'm going to write this philosophy article or something like that. Now, Twitter, I'm actually kind of iffy about for student groups. I think it really depends on each group. And my student group that I was with, I was basically the only person who used Twitter, so I was basically tweeting into the void. I was tweeting at no one because no one was following the group Twitter account. But if you have a group that just happens to be really active in Twitter, it can be good, especially if you have a large group. It's really useful for last-minute event reminders. So like how I previously said, you want to get stuff out there weeks ahead of time for your advertisement. This is great when it's in the morning. Hey, don't forget, we have an event tonight. And then a couple hours before, hey, we're about to start in a couple hours. That's when Twitter, I think, is most useful. And also for while the event is even going on, tweeting about what's going on. Like, I know not many people are actually using it at this conference, and I was very sad, but we have a hashtag going on here at Say West. I know in past, it's been a little more active. I wish my talk was earlier so I could have just forced everyone to get a Twitter account. But you can check it out. Some people have been tweeting, and people will, at conferences, will tweet kind of like the best quotes from talks or their opinions on things, and it's this nice level of meta discussion going on Twitter if you get enough people going. Twitter can also be useful for discussion amongst members. Again, you know, you don't want to just spam people with ads. You want to actually reply if they ever say anything to you, and actually act like you're a human being and not just a bot putting out ads for events. And in the same way, it's really useful for promotion because you can tweet at people. I'm sure you've heard of this concept. A lot of schools have official school Twitter feeds where they will occasionally tweet events that are going on. I know the one useful thing for our Purdue Twitter account when we had it was I would tweet at the Life at Purdue Twitter page, and they would retweet all of our events because we were one of the Purdue student groups. And so it was exposing it to basically all the students on campus, thousands of students who were following this feed. So I would look into see if your school has something like that and utilize it. In addition to official school stuff, you know, you can basically utilize any popular tweeters or organizations. I listed some down here. Some of these people are at this conference, some aren't. The lists of atheists and skeptical people is obviously way longer than this. I just picked some off the top of my head who I know are very active on Twitter, so they will actually probably see what you're tweeting at them and might retweet it or respond to you. But again, it's not just about ads. Sometimes it's great that you can tweet something at PZ Myers and say, hey, what's your opinion on this article? Or, oh, I did this cool thing in class, what do you think about it? And you can actually get a conversation going back and forth. YouTube. I would not encourage groups to like try to make their own full YouTube channel with like a podcast or something with interviews, because that's, again, really, really hard work, a lot of time. But at the very least, it's a great place to record, you know, those speakers you're hosting. So if someone couldn't make your event, or you just want to show that your event to a larger audience, make sure to ask permission ahead of time, but you can go ahead and put that on YouTube. I know that's been very successful for the groups I've been involved with. And members are always very happy if they, they have a midterm during a great speech by Greta Christina, they're glad that they can at least go and watch it later. And, it's good to have those events to show that you've actually done stuff in the past. It's good for promotion. But make sure if you're going to do that, that you actually have at least somewhat decent AV equipment. A lot of schools will let you check out AV equipment if you're a student group. So look to see if yours has any sort of program like that, because you really don't want to go to the trouble of videotaping a talk and putting it on YouTube and then realizing you can't actually hear anything they're saying, or it's grainy or something like that. So make sure you have at least some standard of AV equipment before you waste your time doing that. Google+, I know no one uses Google+ anymore. I'll say it how it is. But it is good for, I think, at least one thing, and that's Google Hangouts through Google+. It's super useful, for example, if maybe you can't afford to fly a speaker out for whatever reason, or schedules don't work, but you want to actually still just have a little teleconference with them. I just put up this picture of PZ because I know he does lots of little Google Hangouts on his blog on various topics. But that could work for an event you're running. If you, for example, Rethought Blogs, a little plug, is actually going to be doing a totally online conference in July where it's all going to be through Google Hangouts, and we're going to have lots of speakers and basically like a real conference, except it's free and anyone can tune in and watch at any time, and it's all online. And so you could do something similar for your group, or if you just want to have one speaker, that would be great too. And one other big perk of Google+ is it's really great for officer meetings. This was mentioned in an earlier talk, but if you can, it's always a little hard to get everyone to have the same schedule opening, especially in college. It can be very busy. But when you can not leave your bedroom and don't have to put pants on, people are way more eager to meet with you. So I would definitely suggest using that for meeting or for teleconference stuff like I mentioned. Reddit. Reddit can be good. It can also be bad, so take it with a grain of salt. It's a fickle beast, so you never know if you will succeed. And I say don't read the comments because they'll probably make you sad. But if you're trying to promote your event, it can be a good place for that, or if you want some coverage over an event you've done. Her atheism is huge. There are hundreds of thousands of people on that site who will see it. But there are also smaller subreddits can be great to use. For example, these are particular to me because I live in Seattle and I go to the University of Washington. So maybe if I have an upcoming event, I can go advertise it at the local university subreddit or at the local, or just a local subreddit for like Seattle. And you can even make your own subreddit if you really want to. If you have a lot of Redditors in your group and you think they're spending most of their time on Reddit, maybe you can get them to be a little more active in the group by doing it that way. You can make it private and invite whoever you want to that and be able to have lots of different discussions over articles you find interesting, or just you can make self-posts and write about whatever you want for a little discussion forum. So I do say take it with a grain of salt. Don't let your feelings be hurt if something doesn't get popular or upvoted or someone says something mean to you on the internet, but it can be useful. But all those things are worthless if you don't keep it updated. I just want to reiterate that point. It does not matter if you signed up for all these sites if you don't update it ever. So you really have to try hard to pick what you know you can handle, and pick as many as you know you can handle. For stuff like YouTube, it's not as important, obviously, because you're only going to put videos up every once in a while. But if someone's coming to your website and it hasn't updated since 2009, that's a huge issue. I do want to give some general tips that I think are cross-platform to kind of wrap this up. And the first is how to help keep this updated. I think most groups should have a social media officer, or at least make this part of the secretary's duties. And I think this is great because I'm sure all of you know that person who has that pathological obsession with Facebook or Twitter, and they always seem to be on their phone. That's the person you should recruit to do this job because they already like using those things. You just want this person to keep everything updated. And it's an easy way to get a member active in your group, which is really good for long-term planning. It's a pretty easy task to start because maybe they won't even be writing the updates. Maybe someone else will be doing that and they're just going through and copying and pasting it everywhere. But if you give someone in your group a job to do and they do it well and you give them a lot of positive reinforcement, maybe down the line they'll take a bigger position. Maybe they'll become president down the road. Or maybe they'll just volunteer with the group more in general. So it's really great to just get people involved, and I think we all know that person who is too addicted to Facebook, so I'm sure you can find someone in your group that would love to do this. I said this a little before, but I want to reiterate it because it's really important. Make all the important information obvious. When you click that Facebook page or Twitter account or website, you should be able to see the group name and affiliation. So you should see the university, you should see the Secular Student Alliance affiliate, because that will make it way easier to Google you as well. The topic, date, and time and location of your regular meetings should be obviously posted, as should your next event. And that's especially good because it shows you're actually planning something in the future. That's the other thing. You might keep something updated, but if you don't have any of your future events listed, no one has something to look forward to. They don't know what to actually go to. There should be a big button for your mailing list sign up, contacts for at least, if you have one email, that's fine, or for the officers. So if people have questions, they can ask you. And if you live in the Midwest or the South, this last point might be a little more relevant. You know, I have a lot of people, they don't know what atheism is, non-theism, humanists. Having just a simple little FAQ defining what that is will save you a lot of heartache down the road. Photos. I don't know how many pages I see that don't actually show a human face anywhere on the site. This is my old group. You want to show that you actually like each other and that you do things and you have fun while you're doing things. You know, the one thing to keep in mind is not everyone's out. So make sure the people in your photos are okay with you posting them before you go plastering them all over the internet. But really, you should just be putting photos everywhere, on Facebook, on your website. You want to show that you're active. I was just told right before this talk that one of the most effective things to use on Facebook is not links to articles, but photographs. So if you put a photo, you can put a little link in the comments or in the description, but photos are way more likely to get shared and reshared and do your group some good. Now, this is a really important topic for any sort of social media thing you're using that involves discussion. So if you have a Facebook wall or a blog or whatever like that, you really need to moderate. I know there are a lot of atheists and skeptics out there who are like, free speech, I don't want to moderate anything, we should just have total free discussion. The problem with that is total free discussion isn't free. It's going to scare certain people away from the group if people are posting inappropriate things to your wall. And you know, this is your first impression. So have a content policy and stick to it, enforce it. Even if someone you like is breaking it, you know, they might be your friend, but these are the rules and it applies to everyone. Specific rules are better than vague ones. Actually list what kind of behavior is unacceptable to your group. Don't just say something like, don't be a jerk, unless that's kind of the final clause and that gives you a little override, gives you a little more flexibility. Encouraging on-topic discussion could be a great way to keep some of the more problematic threads out, just by having the rule be, it has to be about atheism or skepticism in some way. And it could be a broad way, but it keeps it a little narrowed down. And it's really, really important, this final talk point, to police content that's hateful, abusive, harassing, racist, sexist, homophobic, and transphobic. Because you want to show that your group is a welcoming space. And if you have these sort of comments on your Facebook wall, even if it's one guy making them, if they're just sitting there and no one's even responding, or even if it's just there and no one went to delete it, if someone goes and finds that first, they're gonna think the group implicitly approves of it because it's not removed. And if you want this group to be welcome to everyone, it can't be welcome to racists and sexists and homophobes and transphobic people. So you really need to have good moderation to make sure that people aren't thinking this is what your group's about when it comes to these sort of things. And on that topic, you also have to moderate yourselves a little. Like I said, this is your public image and often the first impression people get about your groups when they're looking at social media stuff. A lot of our groups get into controversy because atheism is controversial in the United States. And it's all too easy to just get online really quickly and go feed that troll, get involved in a flame war, respond to criticism without really thinking about it all. And as Jesse told us earlier, it's good to wait sometimes between hearing something and responding to it. You'll usually give a better response if there's a little gap between that. So I would really suggest, if there's any controversy involved or anything iffy, discuss amongst the officers or even the group before responding to it. You don't have to respond to every controversy within 30 seconds. I know that's how the internet feels, but you don't have to do it. And also be careful who gets posting privileges. If you have a blog that any member can post to, you don't want to wake up one morning and there's some homophobic screed on the front page that's been up all night and everyone's already saw it and the blogosphere is already talking about it. You really don't want that to happen. So I would recommend either just very selectively picking originally who gets the post, people you really trust, or having an editor or a team of editors that just quickly read stuff and approve it before it goes out. They don't have to sit there for a long time. But it can be helpful because, again, this is your first impression in your public image. So it's very important to know this is fun, but you also have to take it seriously because you're the representatives of atheism here. And finally, don't turn into one of those annoying people on like Facebook. This is from the oatmeal. I thought these two examples were especially good for secular student groups because I do see this sometimes. I'm on the receiving end of this sometimes. No, most event coordinators are fine. This is a specific type of event coordinator. You don't want to be the desperate marketer where you're just trying to get everyone to sign up to every single thing you've ever created. You don't want to be the event coordinator where you're inviting everyone to every event. I get invited to events that are like on different continents, across the country. Things obviously I am not going to attend, but I'm just getting spammed from some huge list. You want to invite people who actually have a chance of coming to the thing you're making, because otherwise it's just annoying. And it seems like you really don't care about them. You're just spamming everyone with advertisement. So when you selectively pick what people you're inviting, that's way better because they actually feel like you want them to come to the event for a reason. You're not just putting it out for everyone. But with that, that's all I have. I can take some questions and answers or do some Q&A, and I hope I gave you a little bit of insight. Thanks. One question, I think.